What's going on, y'all, and welcome back to another Epic 7 video. Today, of course, we'll be doing our honest review for the latest limited unit, Midnight Gala Lilias. Now, speaking of her name, I know some people pronounce it Gala, Gala Lilias, however you guys want to pronounce it, guys. I respect it. I know the etymology of the word might be one way, but I always grown up saying Gala for Gala for the event. I think it's an apple as well, and also I believe GM says it on the English video too. So just for this video, we'll be pronouncing it as Midnight Gala Lilias. Hopefully that doesn't trigger anybody, but I know sometimes y'all are picky on the pronunciations. Regardless, though, that's not what we're here about. I want to talk about all about her different builds. She can be used in so many different ways, as well as I'll just straight up tell you from the very start of this video whether or not I think she's worth your hard-earned bookmarks, and if there's anyone else coming out in the near future. So without further ado, let's go ahead and break it down. Real fast, as always, guys, you already know, if you do summon during this video, if you summoned before already, let me know how your summons go in the comments below. I always like to update y'all, and you guys update me as well. I got, I think I started the day at right under 1,000 bookmarks. I wanted to have plenty to summon, and I think I got super lucky at the start, getting 3 copies of her artifact here, the Hostess of the Banquet. No off-banner artifacts, so I was very stoked on that. And then I got a copy of her as well before Pity. I believe it was 400 bookmarks for all that. 3 copies of her artifact plus her. Now, I did want 1 additional copy just for an imprint, and that ended up costing me, I believe, around an 80 additional summons. Whatever the math is, guys. I used about 750 bookmarks for a grand total of 3 of her artifacts and two copies of her. So honestly, all things considered, very good, but I have heard some of y'all get even luckier than me. Or if you guys had to hit Pity, I apologize as well, but let me know how your luck went. Now, let's go ahead and get to the meat and potatoes of this. Is Midnight Gala Lilias worth your hard-earned bookmarks? Well, first off, she is limited as well as her artifact, but from what I've seen and gathered, with many different playstyles, we're going to talk about all her different potential builds, because I do think there's so many ways to play her, which is a good thing. But even at her best, I don't think Midnight Gala Lilias on her own would justify like a meta-defining unit or one of these like insanely overpowered must-have units as well. Now, the fact that she is limited though, and the fact that she's pretty good for a lot of different styles, and I think she has a lot of potential in PvE as well. I think every single one of y'all, if you have the bookmarks, should pick up 1 copy of her, and if you can as well with Powder, get a copy of her artifact as well. Now, the artifact we'll cover later in depth, but not quite as important, mainly just the fact that it's limited, and it's our first artifact that it like double dips in terms of like a nice damage artifact that also has a lot of effect resist for a few thieves that may want it, namely herself, Bloodblade Corinne, or maybe some, you know, even MLK Ron later down the line. But that being said, that's the main reason you would pull for her. Looks, obviously one of the best design units. She is the contest winner. She is usable in both PvP and PvE at a pretty good level, but not like you're not going to be missing out too much if you do skip her. I think there's other viable alternatives that might be even better in terms of like nuking. If you guys are just trying to have a hard to kill unit, there's already units like Roy out there, Tempest Cern, that have a similar archetype. No matter what the role is, I think there's other units. She doesn't necessarily, at least right now from what I've seen, bring anything super unique or something super overpowered where I have to say you gotta get her, like ML Landy, for example, one of the other recent units. But regardless, you should pull her. Just keep in mind, this is the other thing I wanted to talk about real fast. We do have this reveal here saying, is there a soul alive that knows from where the wind's blowing out? I think a lot of us are aware. This was Natalon Monk, which was previewed in one of the latest videos showing the newer units that are supposed to be coming out. We don't know what this is yet. We don't know if this is a Moonlight 5-star. We don't know if this is a Red, Green, Blue, if this is a limited, if this is a 4-star. We just know we're going to find out about it next week. So those of you that want to save your bookmarks on Lilias, if you're not sold fully just yet, maybe set aside some bookmarks or wait until next week, because the banner will stay around. You can see what this is. My guess, though, guys, is going to be a Red, Green, Blue unit, because it's too soon for a Moonlight 5-star. We just got Shu. She's still on the banner. And typically, Smilegate won't reveal this until they're, you know, about 3 weeks out from their banner getting ready to run. Now, who knows? Smilegate could do anything. This could still be a Moonlight 5-star, but my guess is going to be Red, Green, Blue, so you might want to save some of your Covenant bookmarks for this. If you guys have a guess, I've heard some people even say she might be an ML 4-star, because that's more timely. Let me know in the comments. But with that being said, let's go ahead and talk now about Lilias builds. All right, guys, so here's the build I'll be testing throughout this week. I did see some other players try out a very similar stat line build to this in RT, and it looked like it worked pretty well. Now, there are some things that I don't like about it, mainly being if you try to push a lot of effect resist on a set like counter set that doesn't give free stats, we're going to have to slack on some stats somewhere, and it's very clearly here in the attack section, guys. I'm going to show you some example builds here very shortly to showcase a lot of different styles, but you'll see that a lot of other builds are able to get way more attack, and honestly, I think this attack might be a little low for her. So I'm not fully settled on this just yet. It's just what I plan to test. I came from a lifesteal build, which worked okay. My thought process was with additional lifesteal, she's going to be very, very hard to kill off because every time she gets an attack in, she'll be able to pretty much top off her health to full. And with a 35% mitigation, she'd be very tough to kill. It honestly didn't feel that great. It worked okay, but I do want to try this counter set build next. Just in general, gearing for Lilias, guys, just look for gear, right, that doesn't have any crit chance or health. Health is the main thing, where if you have health, you're really going to hurt your, take the lead, your skill 3 damage, because we want to be as low health as possible. That way we get the max amount of defense pen scaling for the HP differential. So really, just don't worry about any health. Defense is actually not bad, especially if you're going to be on a more long-term build like mine here that's trying to play a longer match. Defense is actually... Sub is actually not a wasted stat because it does work well with her mitigation with barriers, with escort and things like that. Obviously prefer things like attack, crit damage, and speed, in my opinion, and then effect resist if you go for it. So look for gear with attack, crit damage, and speed. Try to keep your crit chance as low as possible because she guaranteed crits anyways. And let's talk about effect resist super fast. Effect resist you're going to see on the builds I show, mine included here. If you use your artifact, we can reach some decent ER thresholds. Now, that being said, guys, those of you that don't like effect resist, I think it's a terrible stat. I just still think it's mandatory for some units, at least my own style. But you just got to be aware, if you build effect resist, there's always going to be units that ignore effect resist. There's always going to be players that have their units built with 200 plus effectiveness, meaning no matter how high effect resist you build on Lilias, you will get debuffed if they really want you to. Sometimes it just won't work out, and all the gearing you did is for nothing. That being said, that also means, though, if you do have like around 200 effect resist, you will be able to resist certain things, like maybe some Conqueror Liliases, maybe some important unbuffable debuffs here and there, and that's going to make it so that we can just use Lilias in a lot more matchups, where if you go 0 effect resist, you better be extremely fast, or you better be picking her in such a safe spot where no debuffs are going to threaten her, because once she loses that damage limit, she is dead in the water. All right, with that being said, I'm going to try out some other builds here, guys, and let me show some example builds from my guildmates and community that might resonate more for what you have. Ultimately, just use what you have available because her weird gearing. Don't worry if you have some wasted crit chance like myself here. I have 4. Some of the builds I'm going to show you have like up to 15% wasted crit. You will fix that when you can, but just use what you have available. Here, first up, we have, I believe this is from Meat, my guildmate. He drops effect resist for more overall stats and is using Wind Rider. He says this has been working well. He just has to pick it a little bit more carefully. So those of you that want to try to counter, not on effect resist, here's an example build, and we're going to talk about the artifacts here in just a minute. Next up, we have one from Coven. This is my ideal build, guys, I think, if I had the gear for it. Now, unlike mine, right, he has so much more attack and even a little bit more crit damage with the same amount of effect resist. So this is triple S, though, with insane gear. I definitely cannot run it because all my destruction gear has HP % on it. So if you guys are able to build something like this, I think this is the best of both worlds between having high damage and effect resist on top of it. It's just so hard to build for weirdly, gearing units like Midnight Gala Lilias. Next up, this is from Morrow, who on my Twitch stream today gave one of the best runs from Lilias. It's a very similar build to mine. Just an exchange of counter set, he opts for speed to get more raw overall stats, and he pushes the effect resist to actually an even higher limit with 181 and Bastion, which is going to give a plus 70 right before you're attacked. So he wanted this to make sure a lot of the other debuffs he's safe from. Now, keep in mind still, guys, right? Even this Lilias will get debuffed from ignore effect resist from units that are pushing 200 plus effectiveness, but so far this has been working for him. So, like I said, if you guys don't mind the effect resist, how bad it is at sometimes it can be very good as well. Next up, I want to talk about an aggro-oriented one. This is from my guildmate Inori. This is just a build he threw. He doesn't even have the skill enhancements yet, but I think he's been enjoying this. He is a very aggro-oriented player, and so, even with wasted crit, 240 speed threshold on Torrent, pushing 4100 attack and almost capped crit damage on just a basic Portrait of your Savior's artifact. This is going to work very well for those of you that want an aggro at around the 240 speed level. And last but not least, this is from Mr. Tristan Wolf, who was a little hesitant on sharing this one. It is a very, I think he just slapped this together, but I think it is a good relatable build for those of you that want to push higher speed and maybe don't have the most insane gear just yet. Because that being said, just like Coven's build here, I've seen some 300 plus Lilias builds that are absolutely insane, but none of us can ever reach that or hope to reach that amount of gear leveling or gear quality in our Epic 7 careers. So I like to show lately more relatable builds, especially for those of you that are newer, and I think this build will work just fine. Upgrade it when you can, but at the 270 speed. Hey, Tristan, thanks for giving this relatable build out. All right, guys, let's start wrapping up here. So, skill enhancements. She's a plus 15 unit. Do not grace a growther. If you have to skip on some skill enhancements, skip out on skill 2. The 5% combat readiness won't make or break you. Do get it eventually when you can, though. Every bit helps, and this definitely matters. Don't grace a growther because I think the skill 1 is very important, guys. I almost think it's even more important for how I play than skill 3. But obviously, a lot of y'all are going to take a lot of value tank busting with this. You want to do as much damage as possible. Also lead into the skill 2. So max out the mullet on skill 3. And I'll just say, guys, do not grace a growther. You want your skill enhancements into the skill 1 as well. So max out both of these. Skimp on the skill 2 if you have to. Speaking of her artifacts, we'll start with her own. If you're not doing the effect resist build, don't bother with her artifact. You should still pick up 1 copy. I'll cover that at the end just because it's limited. But I think for those of you that do want to build effect resist so you can use her in a lot more types of matchups, I think it's very nice. It combines that Portrait of the Savior style when attacking the damage dealt above 50 with a lot of free effect resist. So if you guys were lucky enough to get, you know, a copy or multiple and you want to try the effect resist build out, I think this is the way to go, especially for the counter or slower style builds. Now, if you're not playing in that way, guys, you saw on some of the example builds, they're straight up using artifacts like Portrait of the Saviors, which is just free damage, right? Things like portrait, symbol, anything like that definitely works. And then we also saw some players use Wind Rider. For those of you that are more offensive, this is such a good artifact. If you think you can land kills, secure kills on it, it'll give you both defensives in terms of the stealth as well as just insane damage potential. And last but not least, for those of you that really want to push the ER to a certain threshold, I showed y'all that some players are even opting for Bastion of Hope for even more effect resist. But I do think if you guys can get to a nice go-between, if I'm building effect resist, I'd rather take her artifact because it gives damage plus effect resist combined. Now, closing thoughts. Last but not least, let's wrap it up in a neat little bow here, guys. Midnight Gala Lilias is worth your bookmarks because she's limited, because she has potential in Guild Wars, RTA, PvE, and PvP. On top of that, she looks amazing. No matter how you build her, I think you guys will have fun. You will find a spot for her. Now, that being said, I don't think you should expect too much. There's other units that can already do those jobs, so I don't think she brings anything unique. I don't think she's overpowered. I don't think she's a must-have for those reasons, but I do think she justifies your bookmarks for the limited status and because she's pretty dang good. All right, so pick up 1 copy of her and her artifact at minimum and save the rest for Natalon Monk unless you are really sold on her. All right, guys, we'll wrap things up there. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.